Hey guys, I'm sorry that you are getting this while I'm already starting, but the video was really long and so I wanted to just kind of shorten it up for you guys. So let's get going. What you just saw right now was me creaming 8 ounces of Philadelphia cream cheese with my hand mixer. The next step is to measure out 2 cups of your steamed pumpkin. So as you saw my video a little while ago, you noticed that I went ahead and I steamed 1 full pumpkin. And this is the pulp that resulted, half of a Ziploc bag, a large Ziploc bag. So got a lot of pumpkin from my little jack-o'-lantern, so I'm excited about that. This recipe calls for 2 cups, and I did put a little bit over in my cup, and that's totally fine. Now, typically with baking, you want to follow recipes to the T. There are some things, if you're experienced with baking, that you can kind of alter to your liking. But in this case, I'm going to ask you guys to please keep your measurements according to the recipe that I posted below in the description box, if it's your first time making pumpkin pie. So I used the pumpkin. I measured out the pumpkin that I needed, and the next thing that we need is butter. And what I didn't realize is that I tipped over my little thing of butter. And so keep a towel handy because you're gonna need to clean up if you make a mess. So I always have a towel handy, and then if you notice in the back, I also have a container, like a large bowl, where I'm just being goofy. I'm like, hey, that's me. Gosh, the camera puts on weight, doesn't it? Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Anyways, I just was saying to just put a bowl on your counter to just have for dirty utensils that you're using throughout the recipe process. So the recipe does call for melted butter. So since I tipped over my butter, I had to remelt it. And this is half a stick of butter. It's 1/4 cup of butter, and I do use Land O'Lakes salted butter. So basically, I don't skimp on any of the ingredients in my pumpkin pie, simply because I just think it's really important to have the pie really, really taste decadent. So I went ahead and melted the butter, and I put it to the side to just cool off a little bit. So now I'm creaming together the 2 cups of not puree, of pumpkin meat and the 8-ounce package of Philadelphia cream cheese. And you want to make sure that you cream them together nicely. Sometimes the pumpkin leaves like little stringy remnants in it, and that's okay. But just make sure that you take the time to incorporate the pumpkin with the cream cheese. And then also too, I use a spoon as I am mixing, because you want to make sure that everything on the sides gets incorporated. You don't want to leave anything out. So I'm just setting that blend up really nicely. And at this point, I'm like saying to myself, oh my gosh, it smells so good, because it really does. So I think that that's good enough. So as you can see, it's a real thick consistency. Now what I'm doing is I've already measured out 2 cups of sugar. I do use the C&H brand of sugar, but you can use any type of sugar that you want. And I'm just giving a disclaimer that if you are looking for a sugar-free, fat-free, calorie-free dessert, click out, because this is not it. This is like the full Mama Jamma, full fat, full calories pumpkin pie. So I also need, I believe it's a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So I added my sugar, I added my salt, and then I'm going to incorporate very well. And with the sugar, a lot of times when you're baking cakes, you'll notice that the dry ingredients need to be included a little bit at a time. But for this recipe, you can just throw it all in at the same time. Well, not at the same time, because you can see that I creamed up my wetter ingredients and then I threw in my dry. And then go ahead and just scrape the sides of your bowl. I'm going to give it a little go. Oh, it came unplugged from the wall. It's okay. Just checking my recipe, making sure I'm going in order. So this recipe calls for 3 eggs. However, it only is requesting 2 egg whites. So I'm sorry, 3 egg yolks and the white of 1 egg. So I'm just sloppily but effectively taking the egg whites out of one of my eggs. Another one. I'm just sifting the white into one bowl and tossing the egg yolk into another. 2 egg yolks, and I'm sorry, that's already the 3. So I cracked 1 whole egg and then 2 egg yolks. And then I need to give that a little stir, I remember, in my pan, in my bowl. Give it a little stir to get the egg yolks broken up. And then that's going to go into the bowl eventually. I'm not sure what I'm saying right there. Next is the butter. And that was a 1/4 cup or half a stick of butter. And if you notice on the package itself, it gives you the breakdown of measurements. So if you look, you don't even have to really figure, like, if you try to put butter in a cup, it gets really messy, and you don't need to do that with these sticks of butter. The measurements are out there for you. The next ingredient is half and half. So the recipe calls for a half a cup of half and half. So I always read reviews on recipes, and sometimes if there's 2 or 3 reviews that say, oh, this is what I changed and it came out way better, I sometimes will try it. And in this case, I did go a little bit under a full cup of my half and half, because I didn't want my pie to be too liquidy. And it made a lot of difference, and I'll explain that a little bit later in the video. So all I'm doing now is I'm just incorporating everything together. So far you've got the cream cheese, the pumpkin, sugar, salt, and butter. Okay, here's the consistency. It's pretty soupy at this point. And there's my bowl that I have on the side to just keep everything organized. In a pumpkin pie, you have freedom as to the types of spices that you can use. You can usually add your spices separately, which would be cinnamon, ginger, nutmeg, cardamom. There's so many different types of spices. But what I like to do is I just like to buy the pumpkin pie spice, because it has everything mixed in and it just makes it simpler. It makes life a lot easier. So this pumpkin spice has cinnamon, cloves, which I love. It has nutmeg, and it has ginger, and I believe it also has, was it cardamom? I'm not sure what it has. I mean, I know what it has, I just can't remember right now. And then also you will be adding I believe it's a half a teaspoon of vanilla. Or is it a teaspoon? Look like half a teaspoon of vanilla. I use the Mexican vanilla. I just think it gives it a really, really good flavor. Some people love just the pure vanilla, and I don't think I've ever purchased just pure vanilla. I always opt for I never get the imitation, but I know that real vanilla, like from a vanilla bean, is probably the best way to do it, but in this case, I'm not going to do that. So here's the consistency of the pie. It's pretty soupy. Now, truth be told, I did try this recipe. It's a little different than what I normally bake, which is why I'm referring to my phone. But the huge difference in this, as I clean up my mess, is that I don't normally bake pies with cream cheese in it, but I wanted to try a pie with cream cheese. So I needed to make sure that I followed the directions to a T, because I didn't know what the cream cheese was going to do with the consistency of my pie. So I'm just cleaning up my mess. And as you saw with that bag, I still have a ton of pumpkin left over. So I will be making my husband his banana nut bread, and I'll also be making pumpkin bread. And I have enough to make a pumpkin loaf, and then maybe, I don't know, some cupcakes with the other pumpkin. So, and this pumpkin had fantastic flavor. It was so delicious. So as I clean up, as you can see, I have my 2 pie shells out on the counter. So as you can tell, I think it tastes perfect. So 2 thumbs up for the pumpkin pie spice. Loved it. So I'm just giving it a little bit of a stir, making sure everything is where it needs to be. Taste it again, because you can never be too sure. These ladies are the deep dish frozen pie shells from Kroger. They are delicious. I'm seriously being honest with you. They're so good, and they're so flaky and so crumbly that I just encourage you, if you don't feel like baking a fresh crust, these are so good. And there were 2, I think there were 2 for $5. So my pumpkin pie, it kind of broke in the freezer. So I let it sit out on the counter so that it would get soft, and I just remolded it, like super simple. Turn your mistakes into masterpieces, right? So it's like super, super duper simple to fix a pie crust, as long as you just let it sit out on the countertop to thaw. So see, easy, easy. So I'm gonna fill 2 pumpkins with the puree that I made. And I would say it's a good maybe 3 cups per pie. Made a lot of pie. So as you can see, I had filled up one, filled up the other. And I have my oven on at 375, and I baked these bad boys for 50 minutes. So they were cooked in the oven for 50 minutes, and this is the end result. The form of the pumpkin was so amazing. The cream cheese added such an amazing consistency to this pumpkin. This is our second pumpkin. The first one is gone. We shared it with family members, and then we kind of busted into this pie last night after it being refrigerated. And I'm telling you, the consistency is so amazing. Oh, so good. I like mine with a little bit of light whipped topping. And so I just want to show you guys the consistency of the pie. It keeps its form rather nicely after being refrigerated. It's ultra creamy and so delicious. And I'm still sick, but this it's so yummy. I'm telling you, ladies. The crust, it's super flaky and crunchy, and it's so good. And for a frozen pie crust from Kroger, a deep dish crust, I mean, it tastes totally homemade. I know my mom and I, we used to hand make our own crust, but when something like this is out on the shelf at a very reasonable price, like, you might as well just buy the crust, especially if you don't have time. But excuse my hair. I'm doing everything I can to just get through my past few days. I've not felt good. But yeah, guys, I just encourage you, if you love to bake and you've not ever made a homemade pumpkin pie from a jack-o'-lantern, I totally encourage you to do so. I had to do a voiceover because I just sounded really funky. My voice sounded funky, and so hope you guys don't mind. But if you do like to bake, I encourage you to bake this for your family, your husband, your kids. If you're making Thanksgiving dinner, this will be the star of your dessert platters. I'm telling you, ladies, you will impress anybody with this. So good luck to you if you attempt to make this pie, and please leave your comments below if you do it.